Another round of key voting ahead on Tuesday. 6 states are up for grabs, with Michigan, of course, being the biggest prize. The campaign is now a clear two-man contest between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. Both of them are out campaigning hard this weekend, and ABC's Rachel Scott is out with them in St. Louis with more. Good morning, Rachel.
Mary, good morning. Just last week, Joe Biden lags behind his rivals in fundraising and advertising. 48 hours out from the next set of primaries, his campaign says he raised $22 million in 5 days, launching his biggest ad buy yet, and now netting another key endorsement from a former rival, Senator Kamala Harris, backing Biden. With a burst of new momentum, Joe Biden on the campaign trail in Missouri, turning out some of his largest crowds this election cycle.
Today, 11 victories behind us. We lead in the national delegates, and we need a national vote.
Charging into the next round of contests, hoping to keep an edge on Senator Bernie Sanders.
Bernie says we got to have turnout to beat Trump. Well, guess what? We turned him out.
Flush with cash, the former VP using his latest fundraising haul to launch a $12 million ad buy in 6 key states, with a message for his rival.
PolitiFact has called the Sanders campaign's attacks false.
But Senator Bernie Sanders is not letting up, stepping up his attacks.
Those trade agreements were a disaster. Joe was wrong. I was right.
15,000 filled Chicago's Grant Park for Sanders as he fights to take back the race and expand his base. While the candidates crisscross the Midwest ahead of Tuesday's primaries, some voters say they are concerned about party unity.
Trump has got this huge, push behind him, and if the Democrats don't unite in this election, we're going to have trouble.
And with limited time, the Sanders campaign tells us they are focusing in on the locations where they say they can make the most effective contrast with Joe Biden, zeroing in on the Rust Belt state of Michigan and challenging the former vice president's record on trade. Dan?
Michigan is going to be key. Rachel, thank you so much. For more on this, let's bring in our chief anchor, George Stephanopoulos, who's going to be hosting This Week later this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So you've got Bernie Sanders on the show this morning, and our colleagues over at 538 who look at the polls very closely, they give Sanders really less than a 10% chance of winning enough delegates to take the nomination. So what's his most realistic path from here?
This is all so nuts, isn't it? A week ago, we were on the show saying, is there any chance for Joe Biden to come back and get the nomination? Now we're asking exactly the same question a week later about Bernie Sanders. So the short answer is anything can happen, but it's a very narrow path for Bernie Sanders right now, and it starts Tuesday night. Basically, Michigan is make or break. On Tuesday night, there are 6 contests. Joe Biden is the big favorite in Mississippi. He's the favorite in Missouri. He's likely to do better than expected in places like North Dakota and Idaho and Washington. Bernie Sanders is making his stand in that Midwestern state of Michigan, which, of course, is a key state in the general election as well. He beat Hillary Clinton there 4 years ago. I think if he doesn't beat Joe Biden there on Tuesday, the chances that he can get a plurality of the delegates going to the convention is very, very small.
But if Sanders falls behind and stays in the race, just like he did in 2016, where he fell behind Hillary Clinton but stayed in the race all the way to the convention. If he does that again, could that hurt Biden in the general election?
Oh, it's a common sense. The longer a primary fight goes on, the worse it is for the party that's challenging for the White House. Now, one thing that's important, when he was still ahead in the delegates last week, in fact, it was on my show, Bernie Sanders said whoever has the delegate lead going into the convention should be the nominee, even if they don't have a majority. Will he stick to that? If he does, it's very possible that by the end of this month, Joe Biden is on a path to be guaranteed having the lead going to the convention, which will put hard questions to Bernie Sanders.
Speaking of hard questions, let's talk about the coronavirus and the hard questions that are being asked of the Trump administration this morning about their handling of this crisis. There are critical stories in the Post, the Washington Post, and the New York Times this morning taking us behind the scenes as the White House braced for this virus. What are the political risks for the president going forward?
Huge. All presidents are judged by how they handle crises, but the most important impact here is for the president's political fortunes is the economic impact going forward. We saw the president, his greatest calling card for re-election was the strength of the economy, the strength of the stock market. It's been down 10% over the last couple of weeks. Some signs now that the ripple effect into the real economy could be quite profound. We're seeing it in Europe. We're seeing it in China. If that comes here as well, that's the greatest risk to his re-election.
All right, George, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. I want to remind everybody George has a big show this morning. He's going to go one-on-one as we said, with presidential candidate Bernie Sanders. Plus, for more on the Trump administration's response to the coronavirus, George will be talking to Dr. Ben Carson. It's all coming up on This Week later this morning. And while I have you, here's another reminder. You can keep up on all the fast-moving developments in the presidential race and in the coronavirus outbreak on our streaming channel, ABC News Live.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.